What's up, guys? Stamp. Thank you for your patience over the last few weeks, and I appreciate you guys hanging on. I actually took a trip to go tag some sharks, so I'm back, and I'm going to be working on the content for DD a little bit more. So you all will begin to see a few more things from me over the next few weeks. Over the next couple class guides should be released, and I plan on wrapping these up probably by July, so that they're all out hopefully before a lot of the stuff begins to come out for PlayStation 4, etc. So, anyway, today we're going to talk about Plague Doctor. So, Plague Doctor, one of the characters I feel that really is either feast or famine when it comes to her use. A lot of people feel she's really overpowered, and then some people feel she's really underpowered. And part of that comes from the utility and the nature, and some of that also is range true with the Jester. So we'll kind of start, and we'll talk about really her pros and her cons, and what I recommend and why, and talk through where she shines. So Plague Doctor primarily is a low crit ranged character. You can see here from most of her abilities that I'm going to recommend here are going to be ranged. She has one melee ability, but primarily she's ranged. She has the ability to heal, and she has the ability to offset some diseases and has some interesting camping skills. So where she typically does well, you can see here her preferred position is going to be in slot 3 and slot 4. As you look, if she gets out of position, she can really only do a melee attack, and some things to shuffle the party, and then buff. So she really needs to stay in slot 3 or 4. So what does that mean? Do not run her in a party where you have characters who are susceptible to being moved and climbing all the way back up. So she can work well with a leper, but don't run her with 2 lepers. Don't run her with characters that struggle to move to the front or have really weak quirks, negative quirks when it comes to movement and getting caught in the back in a dungeon where you know you're going to get shuffled. Because she can put you in a really bad spot. Outside of that, she works well in a lot of areas, but she really shines in the ruins and in the cove. Those are her two areas. But she also pairs really, really nicely with, because of this buff here, with speed and damage, she pairs really nicely with marked parties. Because they're going to get that additional damage, which could be a huge chunk, she also can add some additional damage to that huge chunk if somebody was to crit on a marked enemy. So figure bounty hunters and houndmasters really play nicely with her. When it comes to overall combat skills, I'll take a review of kind of what I recommend. So because she's a utility character, you're going to change these in and out probably through the course of a dungeon, where you're going to take this off, maybe use battlefield medicine, or you maybe even need to use disorienting blast if you struggle with corpses. On most parties, if you set it up so that your party is able to hit all 4 rows of the enemy characters, this is really, you won't need it. But you've got to design your party around that. If you do not have that, or you don't have somebody who can clear, she can fill that void. Like I said, she's really a utility role. But primarily, this is what I'm going to recommend. Noxious Blast, Plague Grenade, blinding gas, and emboldening vapors. So to give you an idea of a basic rotation that I would use with her, would be to start with really focusing, as always, as I say, high damage, high stress characters. So you're going to start with throwing blinding gas if you wanted to stun, if you have good, I should say, if she's leveled up and you have a good chance to stun those mobs. There's some 3rd and 4th rows that you want to look at down on the bottom and check their stats. Make sure that it is going to hit if you throw it, because if not, you're effectively wasting a turn. So these are the 2 that you're probably going to use on your first turn, between either Plague Grenade and Blinding Gas. Now, if you're running a boss fight, this is always going to change. But if you're in a typical dungeon where you're just running and clearing mobs to get to an objective, you're going to either start with Blinding Gas or Plague Grenade. And obviously, you're probably going to stack these Plague Grenades on the back row until the high stress and high damage characters are done. Then you're going to use Noxious Blast. Now, if you're running a party that's a mark party, you're going to probably supplement in some emboldening vapors on some boss fights or on some monster size 2. But you really are going to change this in and out pretty frequently to cure a blight and a bleed and the heal with the battlefield medicine. So these two are going to be pretty interchangeable. Now, as far as the other abilities, Incision, it is a little bit higher crit, and Disoriented Blast is situational. This is my recommendation for now. If you feel you're going to get shuffled, you may want to end up running Incision instead of one of these two. Probably get rid of this and run Incision if you had to. But the stun's pretty powerful to help you manage, especially in the beginning of the game, where it's harder to manage some of your stress. So, in looking at her combat skills, one of the things you'll notice, crit mod 4%, crit mod 2%, crit mod none, crit mod 7%, but you're probably not going to use that. What that tells you is you're going to stay away from utilizing trinkets on her that are high crit because it doesn't do her a lot of good. She isn't running high crit skills at all. So you want to focus on, if you feel your blight is not going to be resisted in the dungeon you're running, you probably wouldn't want to run Plague Doctor, the Plague Doctor trinket here, the Blasphemous Vial. You probably wouldn't want to run that. Instead, what you would want to run would be maybe something to offset damage or give you additional damage, or maybe additional stun depending on what you're running. But you wouldn't necessarily have to run this for the Blight skill chance. You could run it for the stun skill or take an additional stun trinket. But because she's very utilitarian, I can't give you a solid, you absolutely have this, must take this recommendation as far as a Feather Crystal. You have to bring Blasphemous Vial. I can't tell you that you're going to have to take these things. So my recommendation would be to play around with some of hers. When in doubt, Feather Crystal is always a great one to take, like I always tell you. And you probably want to take some additional trinkets to play around with them and see what runs well. But this is a kind of a fail-safe to start with. And this is a very generic, very, again, utilitarian role or utility role trinkets that you could take in order to be okay. Depending on how you're going to use her are going to dictate the trinkets you're going to take. So it's really difficult for me to give you, 8 or 10 different sets of trinkets, but this is a good start. Quirks you want to use with her. So On Guard's great. Evasive's pretty good. Quick Reflexes is really good. And then you may want to take like an ranged accuracy quirk, depending on how much you're seeing her miss. But I personally don't see that she suffers from really a lot of accuracy weaknesses. And this offsets accuracy range skills. So I would tell you that would be like a fourth choice for me. I would tell you want to focus on speed and On Guard would be the two that I would say absolutely must takes, and then use the rest at your discretion. When it comes to camping skills, she does so many different things that I really don't feel she excels at anything. She just has some okay ones. So what I would tell you to bring would be like an emergency parachute of a heal in case situation goes really badly. You can bring Experimental Vapors. I would say bring the Cure to use her to take care of some diseases to get rid of, to save you some money. And probably bring Self-Medicate and then Encourage. Trade out Experimental Vapors maybe for Wound Care because of the time cost. Leeches I don't see a lot of value in. I would tell you it's okay to get the disease rid of the disease, but healing a blight, I would say let it run its course, and that's not going to do you a whole lot of good to use an additional time cost for really getting rid of a blight. Let it run. So run the Cure, run Self-Medicate, Wound Care and Encourage, or swap Wound Care for Experimental Vapors. That's what you're going to run for camping skills. As far as diseases you may want to consider, rabies is one because you can offset rabies with Blasphemous Vial. The other one would be the fits because you get the additional speed bonus. So that's up to you. Those are two I would consider, but I wouldn't say either one is a must-take. A couple caveats with running her. If you run her in dungeons that have really high crit characters when you transition to like champion level dungeons, you may struggle with her ending up on death's door pretty quickly. So there's nothing wrong with taking a prot trinket, but do remember that her HP is only 38, and if she gets hit hard, she can truly be almost one-shotted, so you got to be careful with her. The other thing is you probably want to keep her out of any blight-resistant dungeons. So where you have the blight-resistant dungeons, she isn't going to shine. She'll actually struggle in those dungeons quite a bit. So focus on keeping her in the ruins and keeping her in the cove. I feel that's where she does best. And with this buff, she can do really good on prot-type bosses. Like she could stack some of these blights that are weak to blight, and then stack this on a mark party that you're going with, and that can help you really conquer some of those boss fights that you may have struggled with in the past, because that's really where she really does really well in those fights. So that's kind of an overview on her, and I'll be continuing to release some of these videos. I did want to get hers out since it's been a couple weeks since I posted one. So thanks again for watching, guys. Let me know in the comments below who you want to see next. And I appreciate all your comments. It's just I can't keep up right now with my current schedule on my work. So not ignoring anybody. I'll get to you guys eventually, I promise. It's just I'm kind of overwhelmed right now with the stuff I have going on at work. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.